It's just so hard to build that next generation of stewardship if we aren't showing everybody what's there and why it matters. So that was one of the reasons that I joined this group, and I've really loved volunteering with it. And I know I shoehorned my whole family into helping out with the Gnome Challenge, and we had quite a lot of fun with that. We are already talking about how we might pull in, like, get more children volunteering to make the little gnomes and stick them out next year. We're thinking that could be another really fun way to get some engagement with the outdoors during the winter. I did also want to mention, so Sean and Neil over, housed in the Nature Center, and you've been so wonderful to work with. Really appreciate that. I do hope that in the long term, somehow somebody finds a way to either give someone in the Parks and Rec department or create some kind of a position where someone is overseeing all this programming, kind of coordinating things. I know I work at a nonprofit, and I know it's insanely hard to get to manage volunteers. You can't just have a program, or you can't just have all these programs run by volunteers and not have and just expect that somebody will magically oversee all of that on top of their regular job. It's very hard. Like, I know that, Sean, you were hoping that we could do something with the gnomes for Arbor Day, and I had to tell you, no, sorry, I've got a bunch of teaching commitments. I just don't have time to pull it in, and that's, it's one of those things that gets tricky when you have so much reliance on volunteers. So I am hoping that eventually Maplewood finds a way to give somebody a little more space to coordinate all of these things as everyone's working so hard to bring in more programming back to the Nature Center and kind of just get the Nature Center serving its purpose again. And again, that's not a knock on anything that anyone who's there has done. We love working with you guys, but I just know I've been there, and I know how very hard it is to manage programming when you're relying on volunteers or relying on people who are taking little bits and pieces of it. It's a hard job. So I appreciate how well you've done with that very hard job. Okay.
Yeah, Dick?
Okay. So I'm Dick Miller. Lived in Maplewood for over 20 years. I live in South Maplewood, actually, right across the street from Applewood. So a very frequent user of Applewood and Fish Creek as well, down in our area. So I consider myself a environmental user. Like to walk in those places, like to see birds. I'm a real bird watcher. I've helped Maplewood Nature Center with breeding bird atlas data, with bluebird monitoring, frog monitoring with Carol, and other little things along the way. So I volunteered some, but recently joined the Friends, see what else I can do in the future, and very interested in education, making people aware of what they have here in Maplewood, making sure it stays available to people, and interested in the grasslands as well. Hope we can hang on to that. So with that, I'll turn it back to John.
Okay. All right. And full disclosure, I don't actually live in Maplewood. I'm a half mile outside Maplewood. But in St. Paul, we don't have the kinds of things that you have here. We don't have a nature center, and our natural areas are more limited. So that's part of why I have spent so much time in Maplewood and volunteered here, because Maplewood has given so much to me, and I feel I need to give something back. So I'd like to tell you a bit more about the Friends, and please feel free to interrupt, ask questions as I'm talking. As Sean mentioned, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we share a lot of goals. Our goals, as I read the materials for the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission, we have so many goals that are the same. But as a nonprofit, we are in a position where we may be able to do some fundraising or some advocacy that maybe you might not be able to do. So we can each play our roles, I think, in complementary ways. 2 years ago, and it's hard to believe it's been that long, the Nature Center closed. We were all very disappointed when that happened, and especially disappointed when staff were laid off. Before that, our main focus was supporting the Nature Center and the staff at the Nature Center. We volunteered, Carol knows this well, with all the programs that the Nature Center put on. We provided scholarships for kids to come. We paid for the buses, school buses. We paid for benches, and a lot of volunteer activities. And all of that kind of came to a halt when the Nature Center closed. And it took us a while to kind of regroup. Our previous president, Jim Beardsley, you maybe know him, participated in the Nature Center task force. We have high hopes that will still produce results. And we are starting to see some results. We are beginning now to see some programming coming back to the Nature Center. And we've done a lot of things on our own, too. One of the things we did during the past year was to contract with one of the former naturalists to produce a series of videos, which were mentioned in tonight's video. We did 3 videos about birding in Maplewood, and then we had a 4th video about reinvigorating Maplewood Nature Center, which is what you saw part of tonight. We kind of debated, how do we reach people when the center is closed? Should we do online classes? And we settled on the idea of videos being something that people could just replay and whenever it suited them. So nice short packages of information about nature in Maplewood. So I hope when you have time, if you haven't already, to check out the other 3 videos. They're all on YouTube. If you just enter Maplewood Nature, you're going to see them come up. Any questions about that? Okay. So both Rachel and Dick mentioned the Battle Creek grassland. That's another big activity that we've been involved in during the past year. I think you know that over a year ago, the county decided that they wanted to ask for developers at both the grassland next to Battle Creek Park as well as the golf course. And Maplewood had an extensive community participation process, which is actually where Rachel and I met, and she first heard about the Friends at that point. I think, Dick, you were part of that too, right?
I met you at the Nature Center.
Okay, yes. Since I'm also a frequent user of Battle Creek Park, which runs right next to the grassland, I was quite familiar with some of the birds and other animals in that grassland, and we lobbied the county to do a full environmental study, which then came out about a year ago. We got a number of stories in the Star Tribune and the Pioneer Press. So we got the word out about the unique value of that grassland. And it truly is unique. In the words of the consultants who did the independent study, there is no other place like this in the metro area. That the combination of rare and endangered birds that use that area as nesting habitat is really unique in the metro area. I understand that the county and the city are currently under closed-door negotiations. Because the initial request for developer interest included both properties, my impression is that the city can't really talk about that publicly, but the county board chair, Chair Modest Castillo, has assured us that the discussions are about the golf course and not the grassland. She assured us that there would be no decisions made about the grassland for the coming year, and that it will continue continue as is. She actually invited us, our group, the Friends, as well as a number of other advocacy groups that have been working on this. She invited us to develop a proposal for permanent protection of the grassland. So I've been meeting with the Friends of the Mississippi, Audubon, disability group to develop that proposal that we were invited to do. And at some point, I'd like the opportunity to come back and tell you more about that, get your input into that. A couple key points that we're working on right now is that have a focus on protecting the nesting habitat, so no trails, but have viewing and listening areas on the perimeter. And this is where our disability group comes in. And I don't know how many of you know Carol Henderson, the retired DNR non-game supervisor. He's been working with us in terms of this concept of having this a site that would meet national standards of what's called the Birdability Group, which is a group that advocates birding for people with disabilities. And part of what they're talking about is to set it up in such a way that it would be accessible to people with disabilities, particularly people with visual disabilities. Focus on hearing, perhaps maybe put a couple microphones out into the nesting areas and have that sound piped back to the periphery where people could come and have the experience of this unique nesting area. That's just one of the ideas that we're talking about.
Also, they'll hear more than we do. Usually, if they lose their sight, they can hear
Exactly.
way more than we'll learn a lot more from them.
That's right. Exactly. That's right.
That's so cool.
Yep. Yeah, we've been working with a member of the National Birdability Board, and well, even though I've worked with people with disabilities all my life, but he's been teaching me a lot about the special needs of people with visual disabilities. Special needs and abilities.
Right.
Yes, right. Yeah.
So I just want to speak up in that you're always welcome to come and be present here, especially as you're moving forward with a lot of these proposals. We are two groups that work hand in hand together to preserve resources within the area. And so just talk with Sean and we'll be able to get you here and also support you as things develop. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to have anything formal in the next few months. This is a process that's going to be ongoing during the coming year. The county board chair has assured us that we've got time. So we made a decision to not, the funding source would probably be the Legislative Commission on Resources. And we made a decision to not go after the grant round that they have on this next month, but probably shoot for a year from now. And so as part of that process, we would be coming back to you in a few months to get your input and hopefully support for that kind of a proposal.
Just out of curiosity, with the grant options that you're looking at, what types of things would that be funding? Would it be funding these adaptive programs, or would you be funding staffing? Where is that money going towards, or planned to go towards?
That's all yet to be figured out. The key focus right now is accessibility, which we've talked about is maybe extending the corrections road that currently goes from Lower Afton up to the grassland, and then maybe putting something on that southern perimeter of the grassland, which would be the northern edge of the corrections facility. But there's a lot of work to be done there, with the corrections staff and the county staff to make sure everything's cool with them. So, yeah, we've got a long ways to go, but that's the basic direction that we're trying to go, is to preserve the nesting habitat and then make it accessible to everyone, but especially people with disabilities. Yeah.
Sorry, this is really interesting to me. So are you thinking of, like, for the birdability things, like having signs or descriptive interactive things with Braille, that kind of thing?
Absolutely.
Oh, so cool.
Yes, yes, yep, yeah, and if you're interested in learning more about that, go to the website for birdability.org. Michael Herbin lives in Bloomington. He's been working with us, and he's a member of their national board, and he has some of his own videos where he talks about what it's like to be a person with a visual disability who's going out bird watching. Fascinating.
Can I add one
Yeah,
more thing?
yeah.
Just wanted to throw in one other reason that this particular property is so unique and so well suited to the Birdability Project is its general accessibility. Most locations where you would go to see these types of species, you would have to pile everybody into the SUV and drive way out, and then maybe you're doing this like rugged hike. This is something where anybody, even someone with pretty significant mobility needs, could feasibly get to access something really special and unique that is so close to where a lot of people live. They're really, really, there may be other places in the state that have these species. There's nothing like this in the metro that is this accessible to people. And I think that's a really important point as well.
Good point, yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming in and just presenting this and sharing all of what great programs and opportunities you've been able to provide to our community. So just thank you so much.
You're welcome. And we will look forward to working with you and with the staff as we try to bring more programming back to Maplewood Nature Center and hopefully paid professional naturalists.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Steph?
so I want to thank the Friends Group for being here today and just touch on a few things. So we mentioned, of course, the task force, and I wanted to let everyone know that the Environmental Commission had a representative on the Nature Center task force after the COVID shutdowns. It was our Vice Chair, Brian, here, so thank you for that assistance. And the Environmental Commission actually chose looking at the task force recommendations and trying to help promote those as one of their goals this year, because we'd like to see some movement on that as well. And yes, as far as some of the recommendations, I did want to point out that we have made some movement on that to maintain the grounds. The city of Maplewood has been maintaining the Nature Center trails, and they've been opened the whole time. So that's something we do with our park maintenance staff. We now have opened the building as of November. We have the new Park and Natural Resources Department. There's 4 staff that are in the building. Carol Gurnis, who you'll meet here in a moment. She was actually a naturalist with the Nature Center for years, and now is our Natural Resource Coordinator. So Carol and my position, the environmental planner. And then we have Neil Brenneman. He's our recreation manager, supervisor. He's the rec guy. And Audra Robbins, our park manager. So the 4 of us are housed out of there. And now we have been tasked with bringing back programming, so we're looking for partnerships right now. We did apply for a Green Corps member, if you're familiar with that program. So we would have a recently undergrad student in an environmental field working with us for a year on community outreach is the position. And we were actually interviewed for that, so we're hoping we get that placement. So that would also be of assistance to us as we move forward. Then we are partnering with the Friends at the Arbor Day event, and that again is May 14th at the Nature Center from 10 a.m. until noon. And it's, of course, a celebration of trees. And we are going to have some fun and exciting things to do there. First and foremost, of course, is the Friends Tree Trek. We'll have some representation of that tree trek around the trail. Eventually, I think there's going to be 42. Is that right, John?
53,
Oh,
and
my.
I'm happy to announce that Gary just installed the first one over the weekend. It's, as you come up to the Nature Center, it's to the right, behind the play area, and it's the Ohio Buckeye right there. And so you can check out the very first tree trek sign right there.
Who knew there's even 53 species of trees at the Nature Center? It's amazing.
I kind of doubted that, you know, and then I learned that officially, and Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, officially bushes are also considered to be trees.
If they're big enough.
A big bush is a big tree. Well, good to know. So that's a partnership that we're doing with the Friends group. So kind of an example of how we want to continue to work together. So I guess we'll just leave it at that. Thank you so much for attending our meeting.
Thank you. Oh, and I want to thank Carol for helping us figure out exactly where those signs go so that we get them right. Thank you all.
Well, continuing on with the agenda, we also have under new business the Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan. So staff, do you have any updates on what that entails?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairwoman and Chair Commissioners. I have a little presentation, nice and short and sweet. Back in it buzzes. Back in, I believe, 2011, the commission and staff came up with Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan. The plan included several pieces of integrated pest management for dealing with emerald ash borer, but they excluded the use of chemical treatments. So I would like to update that or propose updating that plan and adding that tool with some caveats on its use. The reason why we're asking for this at this time is that emerald ash borer has significantly increased in the city of Maplewood. And in the past, the Parks Commission identified a specimen ash at Wakefield Park, the only ash in an area near both the picnic shelter and the building. And that was the only shade tree in that area. It's a very symmetrical, good-looking tree. It's very large. And at that time, when we were first discussing emerald ash borer, the Parks Commission commissioners emphasized that they'd like to save that tree. Another view of the tree. We did have the city forester inspect the tree last year. It's in good health and it's a very good candidate for treatment. There are other ashes in the area that we will not be treating. So it's not like there aren't going to be any ashes for the insects that rely on ash. And as far as using chemicals, in 2011, there were 2 chemicals that were examined by the Natural Resources commissioners with a toxicology report, but they left one out that is a non-neonicotinoid, and it is much less toxic to bees in particular. If we allow some chemical treatment, it might protect that ash and any other that are identified during the peak of EAB spread. Also allow for the growth of replacement tree that we can plant nearby so it gets big enough to actually cast some shade. And one thing a lot of people are not talking about is that there's a possibility that there might be some ash that are resistant out there. And if all the ash are removed, we won't learn that that's the case. We did find that with Dutch elm disease, and now we have at nurseries Dutch elm resistant elm trees. It doesn't mean they're totally immune, but they're much less likely to die from it. The insecticides we like to use are all non-neonics, and we are only allowing if this passes, we're only going to allow, excuse me, the injection method, not the soil drenching. And then we're going to be using it on a very limited number of trees, and we're not going to use it on any trees near water. The current plan was approved in 2011, and I already covered this. The chemical that they did not examine is called Triage. That's a brand name. Insecticides do not have easy names. Actually, Triage was one examined, and the other one was, let's see, IM, which stands for immunochlor something. Hold on. Imidacloprid. And that one is a neonic, and it's very toxic to bees, and it stays in the tissues of the plant for years, including in the pollen and the nectar of the plant. So this insecticide we're discussing today does not do that, or it will do it for a very short amount of time. So triazin is the brand name of the chemical we're looking at. It is isolated from the neem tree, and if you're gardeners, you might have heard of neem oil. It's a organic insecticide that you can use on plants. Usually it works in two ways. It will stop insects from feeding, sort of acting as a repellent, and it will also keep a lot of insects away, and that includes a lot of different insects, aphids, cicadas, moths and butterflies, crickets, grasshoppers, and beetles. And if the chemical causes the insects to stay away, their chances of being poisoned are much less. This was included in your packet, and there's no way you can read this up here, but some of the highlights were that it has a very short half-life, so it does break down quickly. So with this chemical, you need to time your application for when the larvae are just about to become adults. Here's another handout that I just found today, actually. And one of the highlights I kind of blew up there. Is there an effect on bees? It has low toxicity to bees and is not a neonic. Environmental impacts, if you're concerned about children playing in a park, the active ingredient breaks down very, very quickly before leaves fall, so that should not be a concern. And then what about maybe you treat a tree with this for years and years, and eventually you cut down the tree? Would the sawdust affect you? And according to this handout, the insecticide reaches its peak 48 hours after injection, and then after 44 days, 90% of the residue has dissipated. So the pruning and removals are very less likely to cause any risks. Okay, any questions? There's a lot more information in your packet that I did not go over. If you have that with you, if you take a look at attachment 1, the 2011 Emerald Ash Borer Plan, and flip to page 4, and then in Roman numeral 6-4, EAB management, pesticide treatment, second paragraph, it should now read, the city has determined that it will permit the use of insecticides to control emerald ash borer on city land, including in the right-of-way, on a limited basis for selected specimen trees. Approved non-neonicotinoid chemicals may be used via the injection method only. And that's the only change.
All right, thank you, staff. On the non-specimen trees, have there been any discussions on any type of preventative agents, or what is the plan for those?
So the non-specimen trees in parks in particular, at this time we're kind of watching them, and we're going to be doing some monitoring this year. We will be marking, in fact, we have started marking at Maplewood Nature Center. Especially in open spaces, there's no way we can remove all of the ash that are infested with EAB. But for parks, we will remove the worst trees first. We have just kind of entered a pool for a grant through Minnesota DNR from U.S. Forest Service that would increase the number of trees we can get for parks. We currently have a EAB, actually we have 2 EAB boulevard tree replacement grants right now. One will be wrapping up June 1st, and then the second one will be wrapping up in 2024. But up until now, we've had nothing for parks. So the plan is to remove the infected trees and eventually replace them.
What have been the efforts for community education outreach regarding the various use of the pesticides in specimen trees, and also the just plans for non-specimen trees?
Thank you for that question. We, as part of our grant, we are required to do education. So once or twice a year, we have an emerald ash borer class for residents and non-residents alike. During COVID, we did those online, and we had our first in-person one last fall. We will have another one this fall. Another thing we started last year through the Minnesota Department of Agriculture is that we are releasing emerald ash borer biocontrols. And there are 3 species of tiny, tiny wasps that are released. They're stingless. They're about as big as a gnat. They don't bother humans. And they will either lay their eggs on top of the bark, and then those will hatch. The larva will go down and attack the EAB larva, or they will actually lay their eggs in the larva or under the bark. So all 3 of those different species will attack the EAB organism and kill them. They will not eradicate them, but it will control the numbers.
What is the current level of EAB infestation within the city of Maplewood? Is it high, or is it fairly low compared to surrounding area?
It depends. I think Roseville had a head start on us. I know that Shoreview had it earlier than we did. But driving around this winter, I think that if we haven't hit our peak, we're getting very near. I'm seeing a lot more trees with the blonding, where the woodpeckers have just stripped the bark and it looks white. So it's a lot more noticeable this year than it has been in the past.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So I see you've presented us with a motion this evening to, yeah, we could go ahead, please.
I know you said, and I'm reading it on my phone, so it might be in here, I just can't see it. You said that the trees that are near water wouldn't be treated. Do you know how close or how, like, what near means?
I have not checked that out.
Okay.
I have read with some of the other more toxic insecticides that if the leaves fall in the water,
Right.
that they'll decompose, and then that insecticide could affect the aquatic insects.
Right, and this one's not like.
Yeah, so I would think,
Like the drip line?
anywhere, yeah, like the drip line, maybe even, I would probably double that just because of the wind.
Sure. Okay, thank you. I was like trying to look for it, and I'm like, I'm gonna go crazy on my phone, so I thought I'd just ask.
I have not read how, any recommendations of how far from water to go, but I will continue to explore that.
Oh, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Questions or comments? Okay, so before us is a motion to recommend an update to the Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan, which would allow the limited use of specific pesticides for specimen ash trees on city property. So I open this up for a vote. All in favor of this motion?
Oh,
Say
do you want me
aye.
to make a motion?
Oh, yes, well,
I'll make that motion. What you just said, all of that stuff.
yeah. I
We
was
need a second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing no oppositions? So we look forward to just seeing what other options are available to help preserve some of our beautiful ash trees within the city, and be interesting to get some follow-up as to how this treatment's been working.
Yes, and I will, once we start the treatment on that particular ash tree, I will bring an update to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Matt, can we name the one tree? I'm just saying, because then how's Myrtle doing? I don't know.
Madam Chair, if I may
Yes,
follow
please.
up. So this will go to our Park Commission
Okay.
on Wednesday, April 20.
Oh, okay, sorry.
For their vote as well. And then final review by the City Council on, I believe, May 9th.
Okay.
And I think the tree has a name. One of the park commissioners that's really passionate about the tree. We should
Well-
name it after him. Do you know his name?
No.
Okay. Well, then maybe you can name the tree.
To be announced.
We'll get back to you on that. Thanks for being here, Carol.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So just continuing on our unfinished business, presentation on the annual report with solid waste and sustainability. Staff, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. So as you recall at our, I believe it was January or February, Environmental Commission meetings, so I don't necessarily need the presentation at this time, thank you. We'll just discuss this. It's the last piece of our annual report. So in January, February, we reviewed the Environmental Commission portion. And then yearly, we also like to touch on solid waste and sustainability. So this year, in our new department, Parks and Natural Resources, we'll coordinate our annual report with the council with the Park Commission. So it's a little bit of a different format than when my position was in the Community Development Department. So at any rate, I brought you the first piece. You looked at that in February, and now the second, the other two pieces are the solid waste. And I touched on just some of the highlights for solid waste in 2021, mainly the spring cleanup, which we saw a record number of vehicles and materials last year. We think it was due mainly to the COVID-19 shutdowns and the time people had, to clean out their garages and so forth. We had also tried a new pricing schedule. It was per vehicle rather than per item, so that probably brought more materials. But this kind of highlights all the materials and the increase that we saw over the last 3-year average. So then the pay-as-you-throw pricing schedule. So this is something that we work on yearly with our trash hauler, Republic Services. So we take the disposal portion of the collection and we're able to move that up or down on the cart sizes so that we are creating more variation in the cart sizes, trying to encourage people to reduce waste by, saving money with those smaller carts. Then on the recycling end, the recycling cart audit that Tennis Sanitation conducted. So this audit, I think, is important, and we should continue to do this. It was, I think, back in 2015 when Tennis Sanitation rolled out the recycling carts. They gave 35-gallon carts to all townhomes and manufactured homes, and 65-gallon carts to single-family residential. But since that time, they now allow people to choose a 35, 65, or 95 for the exact same price. So we want to see how that variation is changing over time, mainly to get at the point of the pay-as-you-throw. So the more we increase the pricing on those larger carts, we should see an increase in those larger recycling carts. That means people are recycling more, hopefully. And then a household count audit we worked with Tennis on. They do invoice the city for the recycling, and the city tax that fee onto the water bill. So we want to make sure that we have the correct household counts for our invoicing. And, of course, it's important to be accurate. So this was the first real formal household count that we did. We found that there's 10,988 homes that can have recycling collected at the curb, and that includes the manufactured homes and townhomes, and then 4,290 multifamily homes, which Tennis also collects at the multifamily properties. So that's the solid waste. And then sustainability, touched on a few things there from 2021. Of course, our participation in the Green Step Cities, which Maplewood has been participating since 2010. We are one of the first cities to sign on to that program. Now there's 146 Minnesota cities participating. And we continue to maintain our Step 5 award status. Last year, you can see the items that we improved upon, one of those being an increase in trees planted. So thanks, Carol, for your work on that. And so we just submitted our metrics for 2021, and we will be, the announcement will come out if we have maintained our Step 5, which I believe we have. And then that award is handed out at the League of Minnesota Cities Conference in June. And focusing on our green team here, which is a group of employees from each department working on sustainability initiatives at an operational level. And for the last 2 years, we've been focusing on environmental purchasing. Your commission actually saw and reviewed and approved the environmental purchasing policy. So last year, the Green Team did a lot of education and outreach with our employees, focusing on this wellness challenge that we did called Reduce Your Food Print Trimester Challenge. And then, of course, our climate adaptation plan, which your commission was involved in as well, and that was adopted May of last year and focuses on, of course, strategies for dealing with our changing climate in various areas such as health and safety, extreme heat and weather, and so forth. And now we're working on implementing those strategies. So once this is approved, we'll combine the Environmental Commission, the solid waste, and the sustainability piece, combine that again with our Park Commission, and then we'll present it to the City Council, and it would be great to have our chair or vice chair there to discuss these items with the council as well. And I think, I'm not exactly certain, but it's one of the meetings in May. and I'll keep you posted on that. So we're looking for a motion on this discussion, any changes you'd like to see. And I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Well, just as a household of one, I will say I'm very happy to have the smaller trash cart. So that's a big improvement. So, any questions or comments?
Just soaking it all up.
Okay. Well, so again, before us is a motion to, or recommendation to approve the 2021 Solid Waste and Sustainability Annual Reports for a presentation to the City Council. And so do we have someone who would like to make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing no objections. So that will be then brought up to the City Commission, and I'm sure Commissioner Dozer and I will be happy to represent and get this presented at the May meeting.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So our next item on the agenda are visitor presentations, which I do not see any visitors. Are there any commissioner presentations? Okay, so staff, what other presentations do you have for us this evening?
I have a lot of fun stuff to present here within our staff updates. So if I could have the overhead, please, I'd appreciate it. So to begin, I wanted to remind the Commission, I did send you this email invitation, but the Conservation Minnesota organization is hosting the 2022 Environment Commissions Conference. So this is an annual conference. It was canceled last year, but they're bringing it back for 2022, and it will be held April 30th, which is a Saturday, from 10 until 1:30. And they'll have a couple of presentations from representatives from clean energy resource teams. Larry Kraft, who is a city council member with St. Louis Park and led the charge in our climate emergency resolution and other climate actions with St. Louis Park. And then Katie Jones with energy and the environment. And it's a really great way to bring together environmental commissioners throughout the Twin Cities, and also helps other cities find creative ways on how they can start an environmental commission. So I'll resend this invitation to you, and you can see the registration link there, but it would be great to have a representative from Maplewood if you can attend. The second item is our Arbor Day event, which we touched on briefly. This, of course, is a celebration of trees. It's at the Maplewood Nature Center, and it is Saturday, May 14th from 10 until noon. Again, we're going to have the Friends group there presenting and kind of rolling out the initial tree trek hike. So they're going to offer some guided tours for people, or just kind of self-guided if people want. And then this is fun. We're working with the fire department, and they're bringing the bucket truck. So we can get some bucket truck rides. And you can see a bird's eye view of all the beautiful trees there at the Nature Center. We'll have tree planting instructions. And you know what? I'm going to turn this over to Carol, because she can talk more about our Tree City USA and the requirements there and all the other fun stuff we're going to be doing at the Celebration of Trees.
Thank you, Sean. We're going to have several stations for people to go to, and one new thing that we haven't done at past Arbor Day events is selfie stations. So part of our Tree City USA application every year, we need to have an Arbor Day event, and at that event, we need to take a photo of staff, volunteers, participants next to the Tree City USA banner. So that's going to be selfie station number 1. And then we're going to set up some along the trail by the tree trek so that people can maybe get a picture with their favorite tree. And if winter ever ends, maybe one of them will be blooming. We're also going to have a snack station. We're hoping for a donation of some tree fruit for our snack. And then we're also going to have a craft station. And in the all things tree station, we're going to have the tree planting instructions. We're going to have information about climate resilient trees that can be planted in Maplewood. And we're also going to have a door prize for a Maplewood resident of a apple tree. Honeycrisp. Yes, Honeycrisp apple tree. So tell all your friends that are Maplewood residents that stop by that table and put your name in the bucket. We are asking people to show an ID to show that they're Maplewood residents, though, because this tree is part of our tree sale.
So we are also working with many volunteers to make this happen. Several of our friends, volunteers, and others. So if you're available that morning and would like to help out, please let me know. Again, I'll send out a reminder email for you on that. I'm seeing some nods. I'm jotting you down. Okay.
Honeycrisp apple.
It's calling you. No problems. I'll send out a reminder. Thank you, Carol, for that update.
I'm going to be planting trees of Great River Green that day, so,
You get a pass.
yeah.
Here's something fun, the spring cleanup, which this year is held a little late, May 21st. Usually we hold it in April around Earth Day, which, by the way, is this week, April 20. When is Earth Day? April 22nd. So it'll allow better weather, number one. But I wanted to show you this fun video that our communications department put together, and we'll be playing that on our social media outlets. So are you ready for the big show here? Here we go. And action.
Good morning.
Loving it.
Very excited. We're so glad you're doing this.
It's a nice thing. It's a good deal.
Definitely well worth it.
They're so glad that the small engine person is here. They're so glad that the bicycle person is here.
Motivates people to get all their stuff out.
It's amazing to me how happy they are.
You're going to have to get her some flowers now. She's going to be wondering what you were doing. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your service to our country as well.
It does take a lot of people to make it happen, but I think it's well worthwhile.
Don't miss it next year. We'll be here.
So we're also always looking for volunteers for that event. So if you're available to help meet and greet people, let me know. I'll send you out a reminder on that. But this is a great way for residents to dispose and recycle of the larger items that are hard to get rid of at curbside. So again, that's May 21. It's held at Aldrich Arena from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. And the pricing is on our website at www.maplewoodmn.gov/cleanups. And it's pretty reasonable. Again, it's per vehicle. We did put some restrictions on the pricing this year because of some of the the amount of material we saw last year. I mean, people were like renting moving vans to get rid of stuff. So we did put a few restrictions on the size of the vehicles. But we'd love to see everyone out there disposing and recycling their items appropriately. And one note, we will not be having shredding at this particular event. We have found that it's more successful in a standalone event. So I do have that scheduled, and I'll get that out on the website. Now for October 8th, we'll have a shredding only event. And then finally, the county, they have the satellite site for the household hazardous waste disposal at Aldrich Arena, but that's only throughout April. So it won't be in at the same time as our cleanup, which it usually is. But again, that might benefit us in that we have more room to spread out, which was a challenge because Aldrich Arena, they've done some really nice things to their parking lot, added some rain gardens, but it's created a lot of pinch points for a spring cleanup. So having that extra room will be helpful. But residents now can also, of course, bring their household hazardous waste to Aldrich Arena on Fridays and Saturdays throughout April. So moving along, this is the Harvest Park Native Seed Garden, and we are hosting a pollinator planting event Tuesday evening, May 24th from 6 until 7 p.m. And you may recall maybe an introduction to this last year when we had an open house. So we partner with Urban Roots on the seed garden. It's about 1 acre or maybe more, 1.5 acres in Harvest Park. And they have planted the seeds, native seed, and now, of course, native plants. And I think this will be maybe the first year after like 3 years where they'll be mature enough where they can actually harvest them for these restoration projects. So we really want to do more kind of small programming out there with the group. So this is one of 3 that we're going to be hosting this year. So we'll have native planting, learn the benefits of native plants and tips on planting and growing them, a pop-up native plant sale or native plant giveaways, and then kid-friendly pollinator activities. And we'll have the Urban Roots youth group out there, and kind of a fun thing to do on a Tuesday night. So come on out. It's a free event. Just show up. They weren't promising anything, but they thought that they'd probably have some plants to sell. So I put pop-up sale. So maybe it'll be there. It might pop up. All right. Waterfest event, of course. This is a yearly event sponsored by Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District. And this year it's on Saturday, June 4th from 11 to 4 p.m. at Phelan Park. It's a celebration of our clean water. And yearly, we have had a booth with the Environmental Commission, and years past, of course, our naturalists at the Nature Center. Last year, they had a kind of a self-guided event where they held it throughout, I think, 9 days. And the Environmental Commission worked together, especially Vice Chair Bryan. Thank you for your help on that. And our educational booth on aquatic invasives. So maybe you want to discuss amongst yourselves if you wanted to put together a task force of members that want to work on the booth or some thoughts there. So I'll just pause a moment and open it up.
Well, last year the theme of the aquatic invasive species came out of the Climate Resiliency Plan. Is there a similar thought for this year? You've got, there's a celebrational theme of clean water, but is there something that we should be specifically targeting within the Climate Resiliency Plan that ties in with that clean water theme?
Yes. I was looking towards Ted or Commissioner Redmond, but yeah, we'll. I remember coming up with a list that seemed to make sense last year. And we could also just expand on that aquatic invasive because, it's going to be probably a different audience.
I still have the toss game in my basement.
Oh, perfect.
And I can make more. I can make more zebra mussel beanies.
That was fun. So why don't we, is there any interest from commissioners to help out with the booth? Do you want me to send an email reminder?
Yeah.
Set up a meeting and 2 to 3 of you could show up?
And to expand out a little bit on that, so on the climate adaptation plan, there are 4 strategies. Each then have multiple actions to it, but they include improving community stormwater preparedness and water conservation, promoting and expanding green infrastructure, which which of course supports water quality. Strengthening emergency management capacity to respond to flood-related emergencies and increasing the resilience of the natural and built environment to impacts of climate change. And within all of those, there's 3 to 6 actions, and definitely there's things that people can do, like something you can do in your yard or in your world, So that could be potentially a theme, like sharing what the city's plan is and then to-dos, what you can do.
Thank you for sharing that, Commissioner Redmond, and that's, I think, something that should be included with whatever we end up presenting. And so I would be happy to volunteer, and I think that just setting up a separate meeting task force to incorporate some of these stormwater and other water quality items and creating a activity and booth for the water festival would be good. So.
Excellent. Then I'll send out a reminder to the full commission, and we'll set up a meeting in May sometime. Okay.
Sounds perfect. Thank you, staff.
Thank you. And then finally, the one I added was plocking in the park, and I apologize I didn't get that on the agenda, but when you're in the environmental world, every day is Earth Day, right? So we don't just track one day, no. But, so that's why I forgot. But Earth Day is this week, and our Park and Natural Resource Department, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, here, view and full screen. Voila. Here we go. We are, we used to have like a one-day event where people would come out and help us clean up our parks, but since COVID and plus convenience factor, really, the whole week we're hoping that people get out and help us clean up our parks. I know that the employees, the Green Team, we're hosting a City Hall campus cleanup we do every year, and I was driving around before the meeting here checking out the trouble spots, and they're everywhere. The trouble spots are everywhere. So it's great to get that help and assistance from residents to help us with our parks, because there's just a lot of trash out there that we could pick up before everything turns green and you can't see it anymore. So plocking for Earth Week. Maplewood Parks and Recreation is encouraging people to go plocking, picking up litter while walking during Earth Week, and that's April 18th, which is today, to the 24th. It's a fun way to do something great for your community while getting in some exercise at the same time. Remember to wear gloves and take your trash bag with you or place it in a designated container. There's plenty of trash containers out at our parks. And then thank you from the Maplewood Parks and Open Spaces. Thanks for keeping them beautiful. So just wanted to make that announcement. And that is it for me. Thank you.
I will say I've seen a few people walking around the Keller Lake Trail system with trash bags in hand, so it is something that people are taking and engaging in. I've just never heard of it as referred to as plocking. So
I think it was a COVID-related invention, picking up trash while walking. My dog and I do it, plocking. She sniffs out the trash and then I pick up. There should be a new term for that.
Well,
dog plocking, I don't know.
Well, that also is the end of our agenda items here. And so is there a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So the meeting of the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission is ended. It is 8:25.